Good morning and welcome to Crypto Posse. We've got a lot to talk about today, but before we do that, I'd like to say hello to my posse. How you guys doing this morning?
Good.
Great. How you
How are
doing?
you?
Doing
I'm doing
well.
really good. You guys do anything, any one of you guys do anything fun or interesting this weekend?
I just did a bunch of yard work. Weather was great. Trimmed palms again. Actually planted some pumpkins. I did some wildflowers last week. Never really had a garden before. And then planted some pumpkin seeds. So hopefully, come Halloween, I'll have some pumpkins. And we did these regular ones, but we also did, I can't remember, I think they're ghost pumpkins. They're kind of white, black, and a trippy color. So kind of cool. See what we get.
Wow, sounds like the posse might be getting together at your place for Thanksgiving for pumpkin pie. I don't know, just a thought.
Well, I can piggyback off what Jeff said. Whenever it's really nice outside, I have to go touch grass. So from hanging out with the family, enjoying the weather, I went to a park. We went on a hike, and then yesterday I finished it up with a round of some miniature golf. That was really fun.
What was your score, if you remember?
Um, I made it to where my kids won.
Okay, was it 9 or 18 hole?
It was just so it was miniature golf. It was 18 holes.
18 holes, yeah. Okay, you guys did the full route. Sick. And the kids won, so everyone's happy.
Exactly.
How cool. Mike, did you go surfing this weekend? Talk to me.
Yeah, I did. There was a fun little south swell. I went surfing, had some fun, and then I had my second weekend of birthdays for my 14-year-old boy Taj. I got Braden last weekend. He was born on the 16th, and Taj's due date was actually Braden's birthday, which was kind of interesting. But he ended up being born a couple weeks late, so it was the 25th, and I guess it's those hot August nights you gotta wonder.
Seems to be a pattern here. Let's put it that
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Oh, super cool. Well, we are going to dive into some pretty cool subjects today. One of those would be Bitcoin hits all-time high. What now? Another one will be what did stable coin stability look like? Or what does stable coin stability look like? And the next one will be scammed or hunted, the dark side of crypto wealth. I mean, I just think all of those are really fun stuff, really deep stuff. So, yeah, I mean, why don't we just get it rolling?
So today we're diving into Bitcoin reaching an all-time high of 111,989 this week. It's pretty exciting for the market, and it's a moment of validation for long-term believers and a point of serious reflection for investors entering the space. Um, Over the last week, we had a pullback from the high to about 105, trading over the last week from 105 to in the 10 109 range. Um, so we've got to look at where we are now. I think we're at 1091 right now. Um, the first immediate resistance is at 110,870, and the secondary resistance is at 113,470. And then a short-term top would be 115,179. And then on the flip side, the first line of support is 106,560. And you've got stronger support zones in the 104,850 to 102,250. Um, I'm I'm thinking that we're maybe going to get a pullback to the 102 level, and a lot of analysts and traders are thinking that if we can get a pullback to 102 and maybe even fall below 102 to the 98 range, it would be a great springboard to fire us to the next leg up.
Yeah, that's some really interesting stuff. What's going on with Bitcoin in the market and everything? Would you guys have any, feedback on terms of what you think? Not, we never give predictions here, but there is a sense of like wondering and taking the data and wondering, where do you think we're at, with all that?
Yeah. So Mike brought up some really valid points, and I really hope people have a pen and piece of paper writing down, these resistance and support levels that he just shared, because he's spot on. And I'm one of those type of analysts that never really gets into forecasting. I don't want to forecast something that hasn't happened. But what I will use is the data that's on the chart currently. And currently, what Mike had said, really these support and resistance levels are so important that if Bitcoin can hold above 110,600, that's when I'm looking for a candle closure above that level, which is going to signal the next leg up, which is exactly what Mike had said. And then also, what's really interesting is that here we are celebrating another Bitcoin all-time high. And tell me if I'm wrong, but aren't we also celebrating this past week Bitcoin Pizza Day? Where in the past somebody had paid, what was it, Jeff? Like 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas. Do the math on that with today's price of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I read that again, and I forgot the God, was it three? I don't even want to quote it wrong, but it was a crazy number of value of what it's worth. I mean, you could live 20 lifetimes with that. I mean, I couldn't remember if it was 350 million or 3 billion. It was a crazy number. I guess we could just do the math on it.
Exactly. And what would you rather have? Would you rather have the Bitcoins in hand now or the pizza that's been already eaten?
Yeah, I mean, where do we think that I know we've talked before about like someone like Michael Saylor and some of the stuff he's said about Bitcoin, and here we are celebrating 111, 112ish, almost 112 or whatever, right? But I mean, as we talk about the past, it's like, well, it was there was a day when it was $6, right? And here we are at 100,000, 112,000, but I mean, maybe one day 112,000 seems like $6.
And Michael Saylor, I think I just read, bought another 4,000 yesterday. And we've already previously talked about him buying last week. Well, I think he bought again. I just read it this morning. I mean, he's just going for it. And if you look at the chart of him buying it, as an investor, it's not perfect. You could see him. He's still buying at the top. He's buying at the bottom. He's buying everywhere. So his confidence level, in his company MicroStrategies, is just off the chart. Like he's just the number one guy.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, why not follow the big boys, right? I mean, I'm just saying, like that should make all of us feel pretty confident. He doesn't even wait till you know, to him it's like, tell me if I'm wrong, but 112, 111, 105, what's up? Let's just buy it, player. Let's do this. Wow.
Think about this. Most people have a very short time horizon. When you're looking at somebody like Michael Saylor, who is, as you just shared, he's buying the top, he's buying the bottom, he's buying everything in between. Why? Why would somebody do that? And for me, when I reflect upon that question, what comes back to me is, all right, well, if I widen my time horizon and I think really long term, and then I apply economics 101, sounds like we have a recipe here. And the recipe is accumulate this asset. Why? Because there's a finite supply of it. And then when you have such a high demand, which is what we're seeing from, you got Michael Saylor buying it, you got other big companies buying it, you have brand new companies that are being created to buy it. And I haven't even mentioned the governments, again, that aren't buying it. If you go rewatch a couple episodes in the beginning, we were talking about how they're acquiring it. They're not buying it, they're taking it from people. So you have all of this demand for Bitcoin with a finite supply, which is why if I was in his shoes too, I'd be buying all over the place. And because fast forward, 5-10 years down the road, got Bitcoin 500,000, maybe even 1,000,000. Who knows? But that's my little 2 cents on why somebody would do that. Because I hear that question a lot. Well, why is he buying the top? There you go. there's a pretty good answer as to why somebody would do that.
If it's going to 500,000 or 1 million, if you look at 109 today, you know, you're not in late. So, people that think that, you look back and go, oh, if I would have bought it at 5,000, 10,000, I could have done this. But I think over, if you look back in 5 years, you're going to be wishing you bought here. You're going to be saying the same thing at 109 here. Like Will mentioned, if we could get a daily candle to close, some of the analysts I've been following are saying 111. If we could get a candle to close above 111 over the next few weeks, there's a good chance we could springboard up to like 120 to 125. But that's obviously speculation and hoping that we still get uh, a great amount of institutional inflows and regulatory clarity continues and hopefully we get some catalyst from this Bitcoin conference that's going to be taking place. That might give us some tailwind as well.
And Bitcoin's just really controlling the market now. It's just pretty much all eyes on Bitcoin because I keep waiting. Ethereum did move up to 27 range, back down, but nothing's really else taken off. It's just Bitcoin. I thought when people shorted Bitcoin, I did, and I thought that would maybe some money would come out of Bitcoin and get pulled into these Ethereum altcoins, and maybe we, have a little start of that. But pretty much all week, the charts, all these altcoins just kind of go up a little bit, and then they just don't gain much.
Yeah, which is surprising, right? I mean, it's surprising, but right now there does seem to be almost like just a complete focus on Bitcoin because that will drive everything, right? Once everyone feels what they do about that, then eventually that probably will make if you're a cyclist, for instance, what do they call it? Drafting, where there's a guy in the lead and you're kind of drafting off him, right? Isn't that the kind of the concept we are talking about? We're surprised that, a lot of the coins aren't like drafting off of Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that'll happen. I think it has happened in the past. There's different times where, all the focus is on Bitcoin, but, great subject matter. Let's kind of switch gears into a new topic of what's this one? What does stablecoin stability look like?
That's a really good topic to touch on, especially to segue from what you guys were just touching on. There's a very specific reason as to why all the money's in Bitcoin right now. It has everything to do with the Bitcoin ETF. We're in a very different market right now, and people are trying to put their finger on what's happening. They're trying to get a pulse of what's going on. And when you take a step back, and this is going to transition into stablecoin stability, when you look at the scope of this whole crypto sphere and you have ETFs, right now, we're not seeing on any charts retail jumping in. What we're seeing is a big influx of money from institutions that only really have access to Bitcoin or Ethereum through the ETF. That's the only legal way for them to obtain this asset, right? How stablecoins fit into this picture is why would a big VC fund or corporation or institution invest into an asset if they had no real way to get out of that asset or to secure profits? And that's where stablecoins come into play. Stablecoins gives us the ability to take profit in what you call a stablecoin, which is backed by the dollar. So if I want to sell my Bitcoins at $110,000 and I want to secure profits, well, that's going to go into the stablecoin. That's going to secure, because it's backed 1-to-1, that's going to secure my profit. Now I'm sitting on $110,000 cash, liquid, in stablecoin. And what they're working on now, and Mike has touched on it in past episodes, is the Genius Act. And what the Genius Act is going to do, it's going to outline the framework of these stable coins, which is a whole industry in the crypto sphere because that's how people are putting money into the crypto market. They take their US dollars, they go to an exchange, they buy the crypto, but then when they're taking their crypto out and they're profiting, it goes again into these stable coins. And that's what they're working on in the background, which is so key to the growth, the continued growth of this industry.
Definitely, because as more and more people feel, solid, stable, whatever we want to call it, it just universalizes investment. More and more people coming in, it doesn't seem as sketchy, right?
Exactly.
And I've noticed a lot more new stable coins too. When I'm scanning through exchanges, I've seen several, 3 or 4, and one of them I believe is USD1, which was under President Trump's company. And I just saw that pop up last week. I don't know if any of you saw that.
I haven't seen that yet, but it's really interesting because have you guys heard how Ripple is trying to acquire Circle, which Circle is the issuer of USDC, which is kind of interesting because what I don't quite understand yet is how doesn't Ripple have their own stablecoin as well? Like RLUSD, I'm pretty sure is what they have.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
And then you've got PayPal too. PayPal has their own stablecoin too. So it seems like the world is transitioning in front of our eyes. Believe it or not, because people are so distracted, that all this is being laid out and people are actually using these stablecoins. And some people don't even know they're doing it yet.
It's interesting that, the stable coins could also significantly help the bond market because they're backed by short-term T-bills. So as you have people entering the market and buying these stable coins, it in turn helps to strengthen the bond market. You'll have, foreign capital coming in, funding the debt. So, that's a very advantageous thing for the US government to make sure that we get the regulatory framework in line so, these kind of transactions can take place.
Perfectly said. It's really about business. It's really about how to, because I feel like we've given so much business away to all these other countries that now I'm seeing with all these things that are happening with this administration, I'm seeing that, like, even with tariffs, people think tariffs is something that's bad. But again, I think it's just a tool used to put pressure on these countries to start manufacturing in the United States, which is going to cut down on massive amounts of cost. You're going to have these shipping stuff, from one country to another. That other country, like China, could be developing or making their cars here in the United States, paying less taxes. And I'm hoping, it never really trickles down to us, but I'm hoping it saves us in one shape or another.
Well, the other side of that too is it's better for the environment. I mean, if the numbers around international shipping and since the advent of global economy is just, we're just killing the planet so we could make something cheap in China but ship it here or wherever. The idea that it would be better from a manufacturing space all to motivate that, but also then we keep it doesn't have to be shipped across our oceans. The shipping lanes are just, it's a whole nother topic. It's actually a whole nother show, but just saying that's an added benefit,
And the time too that it takes when you get something for China, you get a bike or whatever it is in 3 weeks, 3 months, it kind of makes you not want it. By the time you get it, technology has changed and there's a better one.
Yeah, I went to go look at I just looked at this car called Rivian.
They're having trouble.
They're having trouble, but on the other side of that, I went to, I just wanted to check it out. I went to the where they manufacture. I went to the office. No one was there. There was no person. Okay. I kept asking for a person. Took me a while I just said, no, I need to see a person. Is there a person here? And then finally got a person. And then I said, yeah, what if I did want to buy one? Yeah, that'll take a little over a year to get you that. I'm like, I just don't purchase that way. So peace. Like I was just like, okay, well then we have the other problems. And we have a friend, Jeff, you and I have a friend that works for Fisker, and we know they went, they're going through stuff, right? And whatever, but still, so there's so many factors between chips and between, tariffs and between environment and between motivating companies to come back here and start, clicking our motor in a different way. A lot of factors, but it's an interesting conversation nonetheless. And switching over to, another topic. I know we got this amazing topic sitting here just brooding.
Yeah, so scammed or hunted, the dark side of crypto wealth. So imagine making millions, tens of thousands, thousands of dollars in crypto, only to be scammed, or somebody kicking in your door demanding your crypto wallet.
Are we talking about actual like robbery in person, or are we talking about like some sort of online scammer thing, or both?
It could be both, but we're talking just, somebody knowing that you're into crypto or you have crypto, and they come in and demand to open up your computer and steal your crypto.
Oh, come in your home.
Yeah, this home invasion. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow. Interesting topic. Never even thought about it. So what you're talking about is some crypto robbers show up, kick in your door. They're not really there to take, your silverware or your, whatever. They're like getting your crypto. Like, how would they do that? Ask for your hard drive or what?
Well, cold storage would be the best, but if you just had a Coinbase or MetaMask, they could put a gun to your head and say, "Oh, open up your computer and send it to this address." I mean, it's as simple as that. It's just something that we need to think about because if you think about how many people, even younger kids, teenagers, and you have PayPal, you have Apple Pay, that could be the same thing. That could happen. It's a whole new digital world, which becomes digital issues and problems.
Have you heard of that happening?
Yeah, it's there's been several high-profile cases which are gaining more every month, every week. Those you hear about, but there's been a ton of smaller ones. It's definitely on the rise.
This brings up a topic of like maybe we are fairly private as individuals. Maybe we just don't talk about that kind of thing. In fact, maybe we say out there in the world, someone asks you like, hey, you into crypto? You're like, nah.
Honestly, that's the best answer is no.
Why crypto makes you a target? There's several reasons for that. On-chain wallets are publicly visible. So anybody can go online and look and see what you have in your wallet. And that's scary. And then we have social media, and you have a certain type of people. And, it's in crypto, but it's also in lifestyle. The person that's got the cars, the house, the girls, the Rolex, flaunting it online. Problem, because people see that, they see who you are, and that's another problem. And then, we do have a lack of bank protection because we're self-custodial. So there's certain things you could do. You could use cold storage, be the best option. Multiple wallets. You could have, say you have two Coinbase, two MetaMask. You could have one hidden. You could have one with a lesser amount of money. If they were to pull that up, you'd have your big wallet put away and hidden. You could have 2FA security is important, and definitely do not answer any direct messages that you don't know.
Totally agree. I mean, there's so many things to be concerned about, and those really dial in on all those it could be. And I'm sure there's even more, wow. It just kind of got to be something for people to think about. Let's put it that way. Great subject. I feel like it could be a whole show about, it kind of taps into crypto security. And we've talked about that in the past. It puts a new angle on it for sure. Amazing, scary, sketchy, all kinds of things. But do you believe, you guys, the posse, believe that that would dissuade people and want to go more toward, like, say, stocks or different things, or could they do that with that? You know, people want to rob you, they can rob you, but
Yeah, that's a really good point. It puts emphasis back on security. And it really is not how much money you could make in this industry, it's how much money you can keep in this industry. The biggest thing here. Because I have a personal friend that went through a social engineering scam as he was going through a really tough time in his life. And all it took was him to be distraught. And he ended up giving his keys to his crypto, his passwords to these people that claimed to be from an exchange. And once he gave up his keys, dude, he ended up losing $100,000.
and it's like you can't really just go to the cops, right? I mean, what do you do to report that kind of crime?
I think that's a really big area within crypto where we need to find more solutions. We need to have companies out there, and there are, I just can't remember off the top of my mind, that actually track these people down. And I know we were talking about it at one point on a previous episode where there was like $10 billion that got hacked by a country. And then now we're having a company go in there and try and track, because everything in crypto is traceable. Now we're trying to track how it is that they're getting their money off these exchanges. And then that goes back to why it's so important for stablecoin framework and regulatory put in place, because if they take this money, they put it in USDC, well, USDC has the ability to freeze those assets. So it's going to limit and hopefully prevent in the future from these situations happening.
Just a phenomenal subject, a scary subject. But do you believe there will be a day where we could be safer?
There's a new phishing scam that I heard about that's actually targeting the cold wallet ledger. Um, they send out letters through the postal service that have logos and branding from the company, and they ask you to scan a QR code that will keep you from having security issues on your wallet. And then as you scan the QR code, it sends you to a website that looks like the official site, and then they ask you for your 24-word recovery phrase, and they've been scamming people that way. So it's interesting now they're targeting people on these cold wallets because they realize that that's where they have, a higher amount of assets stored on those. So they're finding ways to scam people any way they can. It's definitely dangerous, and you have to be very careful. And you know, you have to go back to using some of those security measures that we've touched on before, and that Will has touched on in the past.
No crypto exchange out there is going to ask you, whether it's in letter form or in email form, they're not going to reach out to you for your password. They're there for you to reach out to if you have an issue, but nobody's going to come to you and ask you from an exchange for money or your password. So if you get any letter or email, automatically you should assume that it's a scam. You do that, and you're going to save yourself from any potential scam today or in the future.
Like, you just don't respond.
Exactly. Do not respond.
Because that kind of thing's going on right now, even with, like, I drive a lot and I take this toll road, and all of a sudden I'm getting these toll emails or texts or both saying, hey, we need something from something and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so then I call the toll road and they're like, oh, no, we never do that. And like, there's a lot of companies that always say, no, we don't do that. So in a blanket way, we could take this awareness and just say, no matter what, if some entity through email, text, or whatever is asking for your personal info, no matter what, you just don't do it.
I don't care if it's your mom or your dad. Until you do what you just did, you gave the perfect example. If I got an email from my mom, something about crypto, I'm going to call her first before I do anything, because I got my parents, who are, of an older generation, into crypto a couple years ago. And I would get these texts from my mom from Coinbase. And the first thing I would tell her is exactly what we're sharing today. Do not touch that email. That is for sure 100% a scam, which is why I highly recommend go back and rewatch the security episode when we're talking about setting things up systematically by having an email specifically for crypto, which is going to filter out all the bullshit that you don't need.
I mean, that makes nothing but sense, For all of this, the simplest way is to go, if I would even consider it, I have to call the source, whatever it is, like I called the toll road. What would you do? You say, oh, yeah, here you go. It's like, come on. But people are vulnerable. And so, it's a great topic, and I think it's going to be a continuing one, in the same way that as we move forward, we're really going to understand that, Mike's really kind of dialed into market news. I feel like, Will, you've had a lot to talk about in previous episodes about security, and we're not putting anyone in a box, even though we are for Posse in a box on the show. We're not trying to put anyone in a box, but the truth is, we've got areas, and we want to bring it together and bring our audience continuation of value. Hopefully there's a little entertainment, but a lot of information. And you guys understand, this is just four self-taught dudes, just rapping out, trying to have fun and learn ourselves every week and share with you guys what we know in a very humble way. So awesome episode today. Don't forget, comment, like, subscribe. See you next time.